So today's update is a little bit different because it's a sad day. I thought about how John used to cut the grass for my grandfather's house. You know, my grandfather was older and he really couldn't get around, and John would commit days if needed to go through his yard and really just get it all the way together. He just used so much care in cutting my grandfather's yard. And today I'm headed back from my grandfather's funeral. He passed away on Friday, June 13th. And now I'm looking at the whole yard situation, because now I'm going to have to figure out a way to cut our yard and maintain that, because the homeowners association does not play. They will fine me if the yard is looking crazy. And so one of the things that I remember telling John was, hey, teach me how to cut the yard so that if anything ever happened to you, I'll know how to handle things. And we never got a chance to do it. But, you know, with my grandfather passing just 2 months after John passed, it's just bringing up, you know, a lot of emotions. Just remembering how much time I spent making sure that things were prepared for my grandfather in the event that he did pass. And this was the thing that I was preparing for months. My grandfather went into hospice back in October of 24, and you know, I spent so much time just trying to work with him and, you know, get information about him, his life. And, you know, I'm over at his house every week just trying to collect data and help him prepare, going to the funeral home in advance so that when this day came, I wouldn't have to feel overwhelmed, not knowing that I would be in a position to unexpectedly lose my husband while all of this was happening. So I've been in this space of dealing with estates for the last 4 years. I had an uncle to pass in 2021, and he was not married. He did not have any kids, and so he's always been somewhat of a father figure for me. So I stepped up to be the administrator over his estate, you know, as we had to go through probate court to settle all of his affairs. And fun fact, this uncle was actually the one that gave me away at John and I's wedding. So it just made sense. He's always been like a father, so I happily did it. And the thing about probate court is, you know, it can be really short and sweet, or it can be long and ongoing. And because there was a lot of information that I didn't have, I had to spend time away from John, researching, doing all of these things. You know, I just think about the sacrifice now, you know, and I would do it all again. I just wish that I had more time with John. And so the things that I tell people, just basic things now, if you're working on a job and the employer offers you insurance, you know, take that. If you have an opportunity to sign up for supplemental insurance, definitely take that. But one of the last things that John and I talked about was me becoming certified and obtaining my license to sell life insurance in the state of Georgia. And so I just achieved that goal probably a month after he passed. The process was already in motion when he was in the hospital the first time, and I knew it was going to be an uphill challenge just studying for that exam. But I'm thankful that I was able to successfully become licensed in the state of Georgia for insurance, not knowing this entire time how real the need for insurance would become for me. If I had not made a decision to get insurance for John right after we got married, just a small little policy, I would have struggled to even bury him. I would be in a bad position right now. And so I'm thankful that God had me to do that. Because, this entire time I've been looking at the GoFundMe, and it's like I never would have been able to bury him with the amount that I've been able to benefit from so far. It really did help me with regards to just losing access to his monthly salary, but just being able to make his affairs and make it nice and make it honorable. I never would have been able to do it without having that small policy. So now that I am a licensed insurance agent, the goal is, number one, to educate my family, educate family and friends, and just make sure that they know the importance of estate planning and having their affairs in order. And so these updates are probably not going to be as much of me asking for you guys to share or whatever. I'm fully convinced that God has me throughout this process. He's going to continue to provide for me like he has so far. But these are just little updates because becoming a widow is a different thing, and I'm navigating so much. My family has lost 4 people within the last 4 years, and I'm really convinced that God has me in this space of dealing with estates, dealing with all sorts of loss for a reason. And so I just want to keep learning everything that I'm supposed to learn, because I know he's going to put the right person in my path that I'm supposed to help, and I just want to be able to be a blessing to somebody. So today is a sad day. I'm looking at my grandfather laying there, and I'm realizing, I spent all of this time with him trying to prepare, and being his oldest grandchild, he really took the time to entrust me with all of his affairs. He didn't pick anyone else. He chose me. So now that this has become real, it's not just a matter of planning anymore. It's it's real now. So there's a lot of work to do. And the thing that keeps me strong is just remembering that God does have a purpose. He does have a plan. And I really have to continue to put my trust in him, because, trying to do this on my own, I will fail every time. This is bigger than me, so I'm looking forward to every person that God would have me to connect with. And, like I said, these GoFundMe video updates, I'm not asking for anything anymore. I feel like God is doing everything that he needs to do, and I trust him, to make everything come to pass the way that it's supposed to. So thank you so much for listening, for indulging me as I provide this little semi update. It's been a day, like I said, going through another funeral. It really brings up the feelings of, the loss that I'm experiencing all over again. And I'm confident that one day I'm going to be able to look back and just remember everything that God brought me through. So thanks for listening. And I'll have more updates soon.